When did you get the horse bug? How old?
Oh my God, I was so young. I actually was just looking the other day through old photos, searching for a specific one, and I found this photo of me. I'm probably like, I want to say I'm like 2.5, 3.
Oh, geez.
And I'm standing, staring at a horse in a pasture, and I am mesmerized. I am like, I'm gone. I was like, well, there it was.
Yeah.
I didn't stand a chance.
Yeah. I feel like Mackenzie started at like 3.
Yeah.
And her parents just put this photo album together for her birthday. And the cover is just like her way too small, I feel like, to be on a horse, but laying on a horse's back, just like, chin resting on it. And just looks.
Do you think your parents clocked what a commitment this was going to be for them? Because obviously now you are independent of them and you're dealing with your own, the outlay of money that requires to be a horse girl. But like, do you think parents know exactly what they're getting into when a 3-year-old makes eye contact with a horse?
How fucked they are?
Yeah.
Do they know? I think it depends. I mean, I think if you're like horse savvy, obviously, yes. I think for the majority of those poor souls, they have no concept.
Was there any horse savviness with your family?
There was a little bit. So my great-grandmother on my mother's side was a horse trainer.
Okay.
And so she knew a lot. And then my grandmother was a rider, but it kind of skipped a generation with my mom. And she tried to get my older sister into it. And my older sister could give 2 shits about horses. So I sort of, I was like the one that tagged along. But I was the one that caught the bug. They kind of knew, but I don't think they had a full concept. And then my poor husband met me when I was on a horse girl hiatus.
Oh, no!
Because I had moved to New York for girls, and I had brought my horse back east, but she was in Vermont at like the barn that I learned to ride at. And I wasn't riding at the time. And then a couple years in,
you were
it re-entered. I may or may not have bought a horse without telling him. Mm-hmm. Sprung that in. That was a really interesting dinner that night when I came home and was like, so.
Who paid for dinner that night?
Funny story. He cooked that night. Poor
okay.
guy I see. Cooked that night. I came home. He made me this beautiful dinner. And I was like, I bought a horse today.
Were you married at that point?
Yeah, we were fully married. He couldn't even, he could have. Obviously, there's just like a lot of paperwork to get through if he was like, I'm out.
But then I think then he would own half a horse.
Then I know.
He was like, it's easier to stay married and not have to worry about his half of the horse.
Yeah.
You really backed me into a corner.
I own half a horse and I just don't even put it on the balance sheet. It's just no, that's.
Did you be honest?
Okay.
In the years that you didn't have like a horse present with you, did you actually pretend like you weren't a horse person or did you like leave hints for your husband that this was forthcoming?
He
or is it just something if you're not a horse person you don't understand until the horse
I think
is around?
It's that.
Yeah.
I think also in my mind, it wasn't that this wasn't a part of my life. It was like logistically speaking, it couldn't be in that moment, but I was like, oh, there will be another horse. There may be even more than one horse. But to him, it just wasn't a he's also very analytical. He's very, he's pretty black and white about things. Like to him, he's like, but it's such a bad investment. Right. I'm like, no, for sure. It's the stupidest from a money standpoint. This is dumb.
Yeah.
But also you can't put a price on joy,
Yeah, that's true. But it is like I'm around enough of this to know that everyone's like buying horses for, let's say, just to make it a round number, like $20,000. And people are always like, but then like I'll put work into it and I'll get a show record on it and then I'll be able to sell it for like 60. And it's like, no, you won't. Like, no, that doesn't happen. And also you'll become attached to it and you're like, you're not going to sell it to, and also however much time you put into it and whatever, like, then you got paid $40,000 for the 4 years that
it's like me saying like, my kids are getting good at math. And once they cross the threshold, I can flip them.